Hello friends, welcome to another episode of my Leadership Behavior podcast right from the city of Rome. I am as always your host, Edbetter Bebe. Growing up, I heard this statement made several times and I'm sure many of you can remember as well. Rome wasn't built in a day. To be candid, it didn't fall in one day either. You know, as I stood and walked around some of the ruins of what was once the most powerful empire on earth, you can almost feel the weight of its legacy and also its collapse. The Roman Empire lasted for centuries, influencing architecture, law, warfare, governance, and leadership around the world. But despite its might, it eventually crumbled. The question is, why? And more importantly, what can leaders today learn from what happened to Rome from its fall? In this episode of my podcast, I want to explore 7 critical reasons why Rome fell and extract powerful leadership lessons they offer to those trying to build and sustain something meaningful today. Whether you are leading a team, an organization, or on a personal mission, or leading a nation, these are warnings and wisdom you don't want to ignore. Come with me. Number 1 reason, it was loss of trust and ethical leadership. Rome's leadership became chaotic in its final centuries. Emperors were often chosen not for merit, but for manipulation, bribes, or brute force. In one stretch during the 3rd century, over 20 emperors rose and fell in just 50 years. Many were assassinated by their own troops or rivals. Without stable ethical leadership, trust in the system deteriorated at every level, from the Senate to the citizen. This kind of political instability created a culture of fear and opportunism. Loyalty was transactional and leadership became reactive instead of visionary. Decisions were driven by the needs to survive the next coup, not by what will strengthen Rome in the long term. People stopped believing in the system and eventually they stopped defending it. In today's world, the parallel is clear. When organizations or governments experience constant turnover, scandal, or a lack of ethical consistency, morale plummets, people lose confidence. Leaders who rise by manipulation often lead by it, and that rarely ends well. An important leadership lesson to learn. True leadership is earned through integrity, vision, and service, not fear or favoritism. If your leadership depends on force or flattery, it's not sustainable. Build systems and cultures that reward merit, protect transparency, and honor long-term stewardship. Number 2 reason why Rome fell: short-term gains rather than sustainability. Rome once had a thriving economy built on conquest, trade, and innovation. But over time, its economy became dependent on external conquest to bring in wealth, especially through plunder and taxation of newly acquired territories. When expansion stopped, so did the influx of new resources. To compensate, the government debased its currency, leading to rampant inflation. As costs grew, especially military and bureaucratic expenses, Rome taxed its citizens heavily while still relying on slave labor instead of building a productive middle class. Economic inequality soared. Small farmers and tradespeople were crushed under death. The once strong Roman economy collapsed from within, no longer supported by real value creation. Now, we see echoes of this today when companies or nations focus only on short-term profit or exploitative practices. Wealth isn't power unless it's built on sustainability and reinvested into systems that grow. Leadership focused on accumulation without purpose often leads to collapse. Now, what's the leadership lesson here? Don't build success on unsustainable growth. Strong economies and strong organizations are built on investing in people, adaptability, and value creation. Prioritize long-term health over short-term gains and optics. Point number 3, why Rome fell. Expansion without structure leads to collapse. At its height, Rome controlled territories from Britain to the Middle East. But with vast expansion came vast responsibility. Defending the empire required massive armies, outposts, and logistical coordination across thousands of miles, much of which became unmanageable. The farther Rome spread, the weaker its grip became. Eventually, entire regions became too costly to defend, and border territories fell into disrepair or rebellion. Soldiers stationed far from home grew disconnected from central command and loyalty frayed. In some cases, local commanders even declared themselves emperors in rebellion. In leadership terms, this is the danger of scale without structure. Growth is exciting, but unchecked expansion, whether in business or influence, creates cracks in cohesion. Leadership stretched too thin can't support the weight of what it's built. Now, this is an important leadership lesson. Before you grow, ask, can you sustain it? Do you have the leadership infrastructure, culture, and strategy to support expansion? Don't grow for pride. Grow with purpose and know your capacity. Fourth reason why Rome failed, in my opinion, failure to adapt and to innovate. Rome was once the center of innovation in roads, engineering, governance, and military structure. But as time passed, its institutions became rigid, bureaucratic, and resistant to change. The world evolved with new enemies, new economic models, cultural shifts, but Rome clung to the old ways. Instead of adapting, Rome spent its final years trying to restore its past glory. Emperors looked backwards, not forward. Innovation stagnated. Meanwhile, rivals like the Persians and the Goths evolved faster using new tactics and technologies. Modern leaders face this same risk, clinging to legacy systems, outdated mindsets, or hierarchical models while the world moves forward. And this is a recipe for irrelevance. Innovation isn't a luxury. It is survival. And the leadership lesson to learn here is that stay curious. Lead change before you are forced into it. Encourage experimentation, empower diverse thinking, and never let success make you stagnant. Reason number 5 why, in my opinion, Rome fell: internal division and lack of collaboration. Rome's internal politics often became violent. Rival generals fought for the throne. Civil wars drained resources, split allegiances, and weakened the empire's ability to respond to external threats. When you are fighting your own, you can't defend your borders. Infighting also spread through Roman society. Class divisions deepened. Regions grew resentful of centralized rule. Loyalty to the idea of Rome meant less and less, and unity crumbled. In today's world, this reflects organizations or nations torn by internal conflict, power struggles, toxic culture, factionalism, tribalism, nepotism, distrust. When leaders compete instead of collaborate, the mission suffers. And an important leadership lesson to learn: unity is a strategic asset. Foster alignment through shared vision, open communication, and a culture of mutual respect. Conflict is inevitable, but mismanaged conflict is fatal. And reason number 6, there was erosion of civic and cultural values. At Rome's height, civic duty, service, and shared values were central to his identity. Over time, that sense of collective purpose failed. Citizens became disengaged. The wealthy prioritized luxury over responsibility. Corruption replaced civic pride. This erosion of values created a spiritual and moral vacuum. Without a shared why, the empire lost cohesion. When Rome faced crisis, the people no longer felt invested in its survival. The system didn't serve them, and they no longer served it. The same can happen in businesses, non-profits, and governments today. When culture becomes transactional, values dissolve, and without values, you can't lead. You only manage chaos. An important leadership lesson to learn is culture is your compass. Define values clearly, model them daily, make them part of your decision-making, hiring, and strategy. Because when pressure comes, your values are either your anchor or your absence. And finally, point number 7, external invasions and disruptions. In the end, Rome didn't just collapse internally, it was also invaded. Germanic tribes, the Huns, and others pushed into Roman territory, sacking cities including Rome itself in 410 CE. Now, this invasion succeeded in part because Rome was already weak, divided, and distracted. Now, the irony, Rome was once had the strongest military in the world. But when internal decay sets in, external threats are harder to manage. Enemies don't just exploit your borders, they exploit your blindness. In modern leadership terms, external threats come in different forms: market disruptions, new competitors, cultural shifts, or technological changes. If you are too busy managing internal dysfunction, you will miss what's coming over the horizon. An important leadership to learn: don't wait until a crisis hits to act. Stay externally aware, build resilience, encourage decent scenario planning and adaptive strategy. The best leaders don't just respond to threats, they anticipate them. And these are my final thoughts. The Roman Empire fell not because of one catastrophe, but because of many. Erosion from within, pressure from without, and the failure to adapt to change. Now, for modern leaders, it's a sobering reminder: power doesn't guarantee permanence. Influence doesn't mean immunity. What lasts is not what is most grand, but what's wisely governed, ethically led, and consistently renewed. So, as we lead in business, politics, in our personal missions, in governments, let's ask the hard question: are we building something that can endure, or something destined to crumble under its own weight?